How you
Y'all are
guys
looking so
doing?
lovely. All you ladies, beautiful.
Well,
How you guys doing?
your
This is
skin is
Eric Short
always
doing
on
your
fire.
Ballside Middle interviews with the Brooklyn Tech cheerleaders. I want to thank you ladies for coming in today and participating in this Zoomcast. So we get some introductions. So how about if we start with Charlene? You can introduce yourself and the years you were at Brooklyn Tech.
Hi, my name is Charlene Robinson. I was at Brooklyn Tech 1978 to 82, and I was on the cheering squad. I was a booster for about 2.5, 3 years. I didn't go all the way to my senior year, and but I had an awesome time. And yeah, I was just a booster. Well, I don't want to say I was a booster, period. And I loved being one. So I'll let the next person go. Keep the intro short.
What's going on, Faye?
Hi, I'm Faye Reese-Moore, but everybody calls me Faye. I went to Brooklyn Tech from 1973 to 1976. I was a cheerleader all 3 years, and I was the captain in 1976. Cheering led me to a lifelong love of sports, particularly scholastic sports.
Let's say, did I say that correctly?
Leslie.
Leslie. Sorry, once again.
No problem, no problem. Hey, I'm Leslie Irish Underwood. I was at Brooklyn Tech from 1978 to 1982. I was a booster and then a cheerleader, and rose to be one of the co-captains of the cheering squad. I was one of the founding member of the competition cheerleaders, the Enginettes. And yes, you know, like Faye, being on the cheering squad led me to a lifetime of being in sort of precision performance. In my sorority, I was the step mistress in New York City for many years, many competitions and many awards. And that absolutely started with all the work that we did at Brooklyn Tech.
Way to go. Way to go. Denise.
So I'm Denise. Clark was
Denise.
my name at Brooklyn Tech, and my last name is Ware now. I was there from 1979 to 1983. And on the cheering squad my senior year, and only my senior year, as a matter of fact, I happened to go to all the games, but that's a whole different story with Al Phillips, who was the captain of the basketball team. But anyway, I digress. Being on the cheering squad my senior year was absolutely one of the best times. And what I would tell you is that I had pretty much attended some of the competitions that the cheerleading squad had. And I kind of called the cheering squad my first sorority. I'm in a sorority now, but being with those women, ladies, young ladies at the time, really fostered to me my love of sisterhood.
There you go. And Sonia?
Hi, my name is Sonia Davey, and I was at Brooklyn Tech from 1979 to 1982, and I was on the cheering squad from 1979 to 82. I was a booster, and I was also the booster co-captain in my senior year. And just like everyone else, it was my first sisterhood. I'm also in a sorority, and I love the women, and I'm grateful that a lot of us still have great relationships now. 40 years later, we're still very close, and I love it. It also gave me a love for fitness. And so, you know, I've had off and on spurts, but in terms of staying active, but I'm still relatively active now. I'm really happy about that. And I'm also a dance fitness instructor, among many things. So I always attribute all of that back to my days at Brooklyn Tech.
Good job. And last but not least, Carol.
Hi, Carol Cunningham. I was on the cheering squad from 79 to 83. My entire 4 years at Brooklyn Tech. Booster captain from 82 to 83, pardon. And also a part of the competition team, the Enginettes, and was later the captain of the Enginettes as well. And pretty much for me, cheering was my life. It was all about just being amongst the ladies and being there to support the school teams, pep rallies, you know, going to all the fields, all the courts, just being a part of the hoorah, you know, the just proudly wearing the Tech name and basically carrying that through till now. A lot of those relationships that were made as the sisterhoods continued on well after Tech. And pretty much the foundation, which of course for us started with Ski, Miss Scabara, Elizabeth Scabara, instilling certain disciplines in us as cheerleaders, boosters, twirlers, whatever your title was, instilling certain disciplines, which followed through, I would say, to now. She taught us to pretty much cheer with class and not just shake yourself a certain way at these, you know, games, or don't stoop to the standard of the others, but hold your head high. And I think it kind of followed through for all of us with the way we carried ourselves, the way we cheered, even though at sometimes we wanted to get downright dirty with it and say we could do better, but we were actually, when you look back, we were the elite. And to me, that foundation of excellence, which was also a part of the school, you know, just the whole foundation coming up, carried through to even the sport. So, you know, it's something that we've all, if I'm speaking for everyone, you know, you kind of wore those labels very proudly and still to today. So it doesn't matter if the uniforms changed or what have you, you spot a Tech cheerleader, booster, twirler, and you're making sure that you let them know that you were a part of this sorority, that sisterhood, and even with the Pepsters, you know, also keeping in line with those guys that also supported us and cheered and kept this whole legacy going. You know, it's still today.
So in other words, what you're trying to tell me is that when I look up the Brooklyn Tech cheerleaders, I see your picture is on there, but you sold it to me. Is that right?
I mean,
you sold it.
It was, I can honestly say for myself, that was one of my prouder moments, you know, in my life. Right. That's where I always, you know, reflect back. And yes, I've had other experiences, but for me, cheering was the make-all for me. You know, it was definitely that.
Right. Well, with that being said, how this ties into the Both Side Middle documentary is that there's a meaning behind Both Side Middle, other than it being a drill that we were taught. And most players in Brooklyn know this drill. And but it also means some other things that are psychological or emotional to us. And the one where you guys fit into this is the side, because side represents the people who are on your side, whether it be the coaches, the fans, and the people that supported you. So, and that was the motivation for us as athletes, because you guys were there cheering us on. Hence, you know, the title of what you guys do. So with that being said as well, what was your motivation for being a cheerleader and to be successful as a supporter for guys participating, or anyone, but in this case, it's the basketball team. And let's start with Faye, since I haven't talked to her in such a long time.
Yeah, the cheerleaders of the late 70s cheered in a very interesting time, because when we were cheering, the city went broke. So they cut out junior varsity, and they cut out all the little things. For instance, 3 of us, 1 cheerleader, 1 and 2 boosters, myself and Pam Taylor-Hurst and Darlene Robinson, were also managing the basketball team as seniors. So we were literally in uniform cutting up oranges. Okay, why? They couldn't get anybody. My first trip over the Brooklyn Bridge was in protest of them cutting junior varsity programs, but we went as a squad. Okay, there's an incident where they were laying off teachers, where Sue Mayhem burst into a meeting that was we had all gathered up in front of Westinghouse, which isn't that far from Brooklyn Tech.
Mhm.
So we all gathered up at Westinghouse, and the press was there and everything, and they were going to go, some students were going to go in, and Sue went in with this group of students. So we came in at a time where we were already claiming our identity as women in Brooklyn Tech. We were claiming our identity as athletes that are women that are at Brooklyn Tech. And then we had to fight to basically save our school. Our teachers were getting laid off in the middle of the week.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what, for me personally, that triggered also a lifelong commitment to activism, because this
Wow.
was happening. The choices that the government made were being done on the backs of children, and I was one of the children that they were
Right.
making these choices that were harmful.
Right. And
So
look who's always losing are the children.
right. So it was a fight to keep these programs going. It was Miss Ski got laid off in our junior year. She was actually coming in and coaching us for nothing, free, because she had been laid off from her job as an English teacher. So we had different kinds of challenges, but it taught solidarity.
Mhm.
It taught commitment to what you're doing, because we still practice. Okay, we still made sure we had our uniforms. We still looked out for one another, made sure people got, oh gosh, because if you remember, in the mid 70s, Fort Greene Park was not the Fort Greene Park people have today.
Oh,
Right.
I used to tell people, when we ran around the park, we ran around the park, because there was no jogging, no.
Yeah.
No.
And plus you're managing your schoolwork as well.
And you're
regular
managing your schoolwork.
regular high school student issues.
High school student issues, the workload did not change, even though the school was struggling, trying to give the same education as if these teachers were not missing.
Right.
So it was a struggle for the administration, it was a struggle for the students, and it was important to us that we stayed together, that we did what we were supposed to do, and that we did it well. It wasn't enough for us to just show up at games. We wanted to do what we did well. The basketball team for at least 76 and 77, 76, 77, and 77, 78, they weren't going to be on one shining moment. They just was not. I'm sorry. 74, 75, and 75, 76 was a 76 team. They won their game, and we were dependent on another team to lose, and that team didn't lose, and we could have gone to the playoffs. But anyway, that's basketball. That is sports.
Yeah.
So you gotta now remember, we're managers, so here we are in our saddle shoes checking scores and seeing if the daily news ticker is up, so because it meant something to us. It meant something to us. It was. And I'm just going to be honest, there was a racial factor there.
Yes.
Okay.
I can imagine.
The cheerleaders, the cheering group squad started as a club. Okay. I came in as a sophomore, and the student government needed a club president. So they literally said, well, Faye Reese has a big mouth, let's send her. So I go to this meeting, and the president's name was Greg Lehman. We'll never forget him. Senior, young white male. And he says, how come there are no white girls cheering? And I had been in high school like an hour. I mean, seriously, had been there maybe 2-3 weeks, made through tryouts, so probably like the end of September. And I said, well, when I went to tryout, none of them was there. And he says, how do you expect them to come in this room full of Black girls? Okay. The the faculty advisor was Mr. Maimon. Everybody just loved him. But when people would talk about what a great guy he was, that picture always stayed in my head. He did not move, and he did not speak. Okay. So there was also a racial element. And for me, that was like, well, you know what? We're going to be the best Black girls out on that field that you've ever seen.
There you go.
You know, the underestimation, and people don't like to talk about that, but that's what happened, and that's what was real.
Wow.
So, and you know, I'm 14. I'm saying to myself,
Yeah, I could just
yeah,
imagine.
you know, and it was an inappropriate question. He should have been checked on the question. I shouldn't have felt like I had to answer that question, but it happened. It
And
happened.
it wasn't for you to answer that, you know,
No,
as
it
a
wasn't.
student.
It
Yeah,
wasn't.
you know.
But Eric, you known me since I was
I
9 years
know.
old. You know I
That's
did.
right. I know. I
But
know. And it's weird though, because like I'm looking at, you know, Leslie, and she's shaking her head. Like, were your experiences close to that as well?
You
Or-
know, I think at the point at which, you know, I got engaged in the cheering squad, there was already more diversity.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, because I can think of, you know, my big sisters, right? Vicky, you know, Vicky and Melvina, you know, they were tighter than tight, and they were one, you know, total white girl blonde and one big afroed black girl, you know, and they were very influential on the cheering squad when I was, you know, a freshman. And you know, I think that certainly I'm not surprised at all
Right.
by Faye's experience. I'm not surprised, you know, at all by the racial differences in New York City public schools. I happen to work in an organization that does a lot of work with the DOE. And, you know, not a whole lot has changed. New York City still has the most segregated school system in the country. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
there's no
And we're
reason.
going to touch base with that in a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, to that level, you know, as bad as it was. But well, Charlene and D Nice, were y'all, how were your feelings with this? Like, was it the similarly, or you guys have a different take, or is
You know, I think I was oblivious at that age to the black-white thing, you know, at that young age. Yeah, I mean, I actually probably first saw my first white people was when I went to Tech, but we were sort of like grouped off, like the Asian people sat over there, the white people over there, but you know, so I really never, not in Tech did I get hit with anything like that. So
wow.
I mean, from my own personal experience.
Uh-huh.
And so the time that I was there, the squad was pretty integrated, right? So the Asian girls and the Caucasian girls, it was just one squad. And, you know, there was this whole thing about cheerleader victory spirit. That was, you know, kind of the saying, cheerleader victory spirit. And I think at that time, we all melded together for that purpose. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and Sonia, I know because you grew up in Flatbush, right? So it was a mixed community. So how was your experience going to Tech's mixed school as well? And someone can also answer this. How many students? Yeah, there was a lot of students at Brooklyn Tech as well. Am I correct?
Close to 6,000. Yeah. There were a lot.
Always between 5,000 and 6,000.
6,000. Yeah.
Graduating class always over 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
But I agree with, you know, like Leslie said, by the time I got on the squad, it was definitely a melting pot. And so Ski was so great, and Miss Scabara was so great, and, you know, just having us all, we just really just saw each other, as the lady said, as just one squad. So there was really a mixture. There were, you know, white, there were Asian, Hispanic, and like Leslie said, some of the ladies that were our big sisters were of different races. So we didn't really look at the race. We were just looking at us all coming together. We were enjoying it. We didn't have that racial, is really, when you think about it, we didn't have racial issues on the squad. We didn't have the racial tension. And literally we were all, it was mixed. Every division of the squad was mixed. And we did not have that racial tension. It really was the sisterhood. So it gave me an appreciation, you know, just like you said, coming from an environment where my middle school was small private school, but it was all Black, except for one
Same
girl.
here.
You know, and so coming into this environment, the school itself was already overwhelming because of the size.
Right.
So, but to get into the cheering squad, which was the second half of my freshman year, it was what I needed. It was exactly what I needed. And like I said, and because Miss Cabrera was so great in promoting unity and promoting the way we had to carry ourselves, it was just what this 13, 14-year-old needed.
So,
Okay.
and,
Well,
you
that's
know,
what, that's the
interest-
case then. Oh, I'm sorry, Janai.
No,
What
no,
you
no.
gonna
I
say?
was just going to say interesting for me because I had the bird's eye view of watching the cheerleaders, right? So I watched them for years and years, and you know, they were the big sisters, and they were always very inclusive. So you know, it was one of those things where they were actually mentors, and you're like, okay, that's what I want to be. I want to be one of them. And so that was kind of what it was. The relationship that Miss Ski had with them was just, you know, you would look at it and you just absolutely wanted to be a part of that group because of the way they
And one
carried.
last thing, and we still have those relationships now. I mean, I just got a invitation from one of our girl who lives. Oh, she's over in Europe, Risa. You
Yep.
know, she invited me and invited my son and his new wife over. So this is a 40-year relationship. She's Jewish and our other friends are, you know, are white, and we are still just as close now as we were back then. So
Yeah,
Right.
we had dinner
And
last
if-
year.
and if you want to backtrack some of that then, because it sounds like, you know, internally within the school, the relations were, you know, had gotten better over that 10-year time span based on how they, you know, explained it through the course of time. But what about when you were going and playing like in competitive games against other schools? You know, you had another dynamic that you had to deal with. You know, the first one being, well, if you're going and you're playing at Boys High, which is, you know, culturally the people that we live around and everything's fine. But what about when you're going to New Utrecht? What about when you're going to Fort Hamilton and you got to
I
run
mean,
home?
My,
There were
So
times.
what were those experiences like for you
And I
guys?
think we were always very aware of that. So yes, we had a cohesive group, but you know, when we went into different neighborhoods, you know, as a New Yorker, you knew where you weren't welcomed. And one of the things, and this greatly relates to the basketball team, but I can tell you, we never took the train alone. Like we were such, like everybody was very protective. I took the A train, and I can tell you all the guys that took the A train, they would either get off the train and make sure I got up the steps or walk me home and then get back on the train. And you know, that was because it was New York City, it was Brooklyn, you know, in the early 80s. And there certainly
But
was.
but not to interrupt you, but even in the midst of being in that environment and knowing that people, like you're in by New Utrecht and you're there with your uniforms on, so you're a scripted, structured, you know, looking bunch of people, know you're there for a reason. And were you still mistreated because of the color of your skin? Or was it just
Absolutely.
something that was, you
Where you
know,
were not
or
welcome.
did they respect the fact that you were cheerleaders and left you alone to go home, you know?
No,
Let- let-
you're talking, Eric, about a time. First of all, you're talking about a time, you know, to Faye's point earlier, the teams has started to evolve. Certainly as the student body perhaps became more diverse, the teams also started to evolve. So the teams got better, right? And we all know diversity breeds betterness, right? So the teams got better. So the football team was better and the basketball team was better. So not only are we traveling, like you said, in this unit out to New Utrecht, or in some cases we had to play, you know, a school in Staten Island.
Right,
You know, we're
Tottenville,
traveling
yeah.
together. Not only that, you know, not only are we traveling on public transportation, either there or back, or, you know, got picked up and dropped off, but had to get home. And we not only are traveling that way, but in most cases, we're beating folks. We're kicking their behinds, right? And so not only is there the traveling together as a recognizable group, diverse group, not only is it that you're clear of what neighborhoods and what audiences you were welcome in and which ones you weren't, but the ones where you weren't and then you kicked their asses,
Yeah,
there were days,
dynamic changes.
Tanya will tell you, we found ourselves running for the
Yeah.
queue.
Yeah,
Running for the queue, hopping on the queue, making sure everyone is on the queue to get quick out of that neighborhood,
yeah, I
because
can
it was
imagine.
clear that with all of those things together, that it would have been very, very easy for something to jump off.
Right, it's a volatile situation. What were you gonna say,
Yeah.
Faye?
Well, I recall being chased to the subway by Jefferson and chased to the subway by Tilden, which was really funny because my cousin was a booster for Tilden. But didn't matter, I was running. But the only time it got physical, I have a younger brother, he graduated in '77. So he would come out to all the games with me. And that's the only time that I know someone came to physical harm. We were going to FDR. And I went with the squad. He went with some of his friends, and he walked right by me like he didn't see me. And one of his friends told me that they got roughed up by a bunch of young white men, wanting to know what they were doing in the neighborhood.
Right.
But I mean, with Jefferson and Tilden, it was just like that Richard Pryor low running, so we just ran. But it was a carryover of what we were living through, and things did change. Squads did get more diverse. We never, by the time I graduated, we still hadn't had an Asian person on cheerleaders, twirlers, or boosters.
Okay.
But we did, by the time we were seniors, we were a bit more integrated. And I will tell you, to this day, Miss Ski is the only person that I believe when she says, I don't see color. All right. And I got some years on yours, so I know some more people. No, but seriously, she's one of the, when she says it, I believe her.
I do too.
Because
Yeah,
she was
absolutely.
demanding of all of us.
Yep.
Absolutely. We
Okay,
didn't know
everybody
any
had
color.
the same standard. She didn't want to hear about you didn't turn your whatever in because you were at practice. She was not interested, and she was an equal opportunity
Coach.
and demanding of you. See, she had a standard. She just wanted everybody to meet it, and she didn't care what you looked like while you were meeting the standard.
And just out of curiosity,
And it turned out she wanted the best for you.
okay, but you all were coached by the same person
Yeah.
Yeah.
Faye's talking about. Okay, all right, because it might have changed over the years.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, and I guess for the most part, a lot of you don't understand because your situation was a little different because you guys took a test and decided to go to a school out of your zoned environment. But you guys got also must understand, look at this dynamic that I'll just use some players so that you guys have an idea. Albert King and Bernard King lived in Fort Greene, went to Fort Hamilton. I lived in Crown Heights, went to Midwood. There were a lot of guys that, were going to FDR, New Utrecht, Canarsie, and we were being bused. So there was a busing issue that you had a lot of blacks, and it kind of worked out well for us as athletes because we got an opportunity to shine and not all be at Boys High or all at Erasmus. So we went to other places and spread the wealth. But you never saw, George Shapiro at Boys High.
Right.
No.
You know what I mean? Those white kids were not coming to the black neighborhoods to go to school at. So there was a systematic process in place that actually did work well for the student athlete, but for the minority student athlete, excuse me. And I want to know, what did you guys take on that aspect? It's probably something you guys weren't aware of, but based on those dynamics and being a supporter and part of a team environment at your school, which didn't have that issue, what were you guys' opinions on how, the other schools were being dealt with respect to that, because it had a lot of other impacts on it? Sorry for the long story, but,
Yeah.
if you followed that.
I was actually at a small, primarily white private school before I came to Tech. I went to St. Anne's in Brooklyn Heights. And so, like you said, Eric, the decision to go to a specialized high school was kind of the path that I had seen my older siblings take. My older brother went to Stuyvesant, my younger sister went to Stuyvesant, I was at Tech, my other sister was at Bronx Science. So that was kind of I'm the fourth of five. So that's the plan, right? You're just following the plan that mom and dad have put in place. And I think, for me, what you're sharing, I'm kind of oblivious to, because for most of my life, I grew up in Crown Heights on Union Street between Albany and Troy. And for most of my life.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious. And
We'll
for
talk
most
later.
of my life, my sister and I, who were close in age, we got up, we hopped on the 3, and we went into Brooklyn Heights every day. And then that turned into going into Manhattan or into Fort Greene every day. And so to be honest, the microcosm of what was happening within the school in Crown Heights was really quite removed from, my experience. And I think, the point that Faye was making is that, yeah, that idea of excellence is what tech, frankly, is all about at many layers. And then it also sort of seeped into the environment of the cheering squad because you had ski that was bringing it into that environment. And so for me, I've often described tech as this incredible melting pot, because most of my elementary school career, it was a very few of us. And for me, going to tech was like wonderful because there were so many more me's. There were other people from other cultures. It wasn't just, the 5 of us Black girls in a school full of white folks. And so, I've often described tech as this incredible melting pot where the common denominator is just that everybody was wicked smart. And so, how other things were moving in the city, I think, frankly, is completely removed from my experience.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, and I can understand that because it's, you're in your own world as a student at that age.
At that age,
It makes
yep.
it tough. But that was more of a enlightening statement to see how that the paths cross a little differently. You're on that train with those kids who get off at Atlantic Avenue and they're going to Bay Ridge. But I'm just saying that that's what you were dealing with. And I almost forgot to add this in. Like, I live in North Carolina now, and I coach here, and I don't see any kids on mass transportation. But us Brooklyn, or actually New Yorkers, we were on the trains with the rapists, killers, smelly guys, great guys, drunks, everybody, whereas now, I mean, in suburbs, all you see is school buses. I didn't get on a school bus until my daughter was born, but I had never been on a school bus, so.
Interesting. Sorry, I was going to say one of the things that's interesting. I think I've always kind of been aware of that dynamic only because, again, taking the trains and traveling with this pack of basketball players, which ended up being like my really good friends, right? And what I would tell you is that, Lorenzo Charles, who graduated in 81, he took the A train. Lorenzo, we took the train together. Sam Cooke, God rest his soul, graduated in 82, was also on the A train. So what I know is that, and it's almost kind of a tongue-in-cheek story, is that to some degree, when we were on the trains, people looked at us like we were the hoodlums anyway. So regardless of the fact that we were Brooklyn Tech and the elite students and actually the smart students, and in some cases the student athletes, you're on the A train with the guy with the sheepskin coat on, and they throw you in the same bucket. They were, Boys and Girls is my neighborhood school. I grew up on Roosevelt, right off of Atlantic Avenue. 271 was my junior high school. 271, if you read back in the history of Brooklyn, that was the school that was the big strike and the fights and the tomahawks. And they burnt down 87. Do you remember that? They burnt down the school across the street. That was my elementary school. Yeah. So, and I remember the fire. And, the strike and those that broke the strike. So that whole history of, the Brooklyn history of the public education it was very much ingrained in me. And as a matter of fact, I would tell you that it was counselors that said, well, you should go to Brooklyn Tech, because you're bright and you're, excelling, and they made sure that I took the test and got there. But I never lost sight of the fact that to many others, we were just hood kids, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I didn't realize a lot of us went to private school. I didn't realize Leslie and Sonia. How about you, Faye? Did you come from a private school as well?
Unless PS 92 turned into a private school.
Okay.
That's my school too.
And yeah. But what I was going to say is, Eric and I are a little older than you ladies, and busing was a big issue. Mm-hmm. And I, for instance, my cousin, you remember George Johnson that played for St. John's? Eric?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so Yeah. Well, we called him Beanie.
Yeah.
And Beanie's mother almost married my cousin. So I met him in his senior year of high school, and then he went on to St. John's. He was like he was like a rock star at New Utrecht. But then later on, I dated a guy that was about his age that also went to New Utrecht that talked about getting beat up.
Yeah.
Okay, talked about being chased to the bus.
Mhm.
And Chris Rock went to New Utrecht and actually makes jokes about this.
Yeah.
He makes jokes about it. So it was, and remember, I'm an activist. It was this thing that if you can bring something to our school, if you can be a commodity to our school, you're okay. But if you're just a regular student like Chris Rock, we're going to beat you up. Or like the guy I used to date, I'm going to leave him nameless for a whole lot of reasons. But anyway. But if you're, and they probably got annoyed with him because he was really tall and he couldn't play. But you know, if you didn't have something that can enhance their school reputation, then you're subject to be victimized. But if you could bring something like Beanie, you know, we love you. You're a rock star. Well,
and he was going to New Utrecht and lived in, you know, like Bed-Stuy.
Bed-Stuy. He lived in Bed-Stuy.
You know, so
yeah.
you know, but like I said, you know, spreading the wealth gave us a lot of opportunities because, you know, it wasn't inundated with a bunch of guys from Erasmus where we're all going to school there. And, you know, to some degree, these are the, you know, the individuals that you guys were rooting for which, you know, like you said, you know, you guys said you travel with them and, you know, and the respect that they had for you guys. But meanwhile, like I said, the communities that you were in, they didn't have that level of respect. You know, you're going to Canarsie and passing through Howard Beach. It's a different story, you know, and braving those things as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, whereas now we know for my child, I'm picking her up at the door. She's not going to be dealing with stuff like that. That becomes an issue. And so I was just concerned that what you guys take was to see if over that 10-year span, if the relationships or the experiences were similar, or did they drive themselves into a more wholesome environment where those things didn't happen? And it sounded to me that to some degree, things lessened as time went on. And that might be because of the fact that the busing softened the blow to get people to change in those environments. And in those communities, change happens very subtly. We're not aware of them, especially as a teenager. We're not thinking about that. You know, the next game, the next test, you know, my girlfriend, I'm going to this party on Saturday. That was, you know, the essence of our existence. And but what was it like competitively with other schools and their cheerleading squads for you guys? And let's start with Carol, because I see her chomping on the bit there.
I think to some extent we were kind of targeted in a sense, and this is my experience. I think we were challenged because they knew we were coming from tech and they were expecting us not to perform at their level. So we did get interference. And I remember walking through certain bundles, you know, at times, and, you know, Ski would always keep us in line, of course, but you kind of felt like you wanted to, you know, address them as well, you know, but we were not taught to be that way. And so we kind of held our heads high and kind of talked under our breath and said things amongst each other. But I think they knew we were coming from tech, but they knew we were the smart kids. And that was a part of the challenge on the court, in the field, regardless of how good the players were doing. And I think if we whipped their butt, then we kind of scored some points, and they may not like it, and they may stand up to the side, so to speak, and talk their turkey amongst themselves, but they wouldn't challenge us physically or anything. But it was definitely the hard looks, you know, you thought you looked better, you guys are, you know. So I think
attitude.
we went through a lot of that, and still in all, we still marched out ourselves proudly across the courts, the fields, whatever. We stomped hard. We made sure we delivered our goods as best as we knew how, proudly, heads held high, making sure our statement was made classy. Um, and I think the classiness they couldn't handle to a
Right.
degree, and that would upset them and cause them more uproar.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
again, like I said, if we won those games, we kind of won as cheerleaders as well, and kind of sent them home quiet, but they still were giving us the looks on the trains, at the bus stops, and all those other places. But I think, like I said, I think some of the interference that we dealt with was just because we were coming from tech. It
Right. Look
wasn't
at
so much
Sonya.
that
I can
you
see
lived in
Sonya,
the
you're like,
hood.
heck yeah.
I don't think it was just because you lived in the hood or any of that, because I think if I put my cheerleader jacket on and got on the train, I would get certain looks. And then other people would nod because they know where you're coming from. That means you're smart and you play well, you know. So I think just them knowing we were, I'll say, elite, it gave us some unnecessary interference at times.
What do you
Even
think,
though we
Sonya?
still made the best of it and we did good and we left proudly walking off knowing that we we left our mark here, we still did have to deal with certain things. And I don't know if I would say those things were racially driven at all. It didn't matter if we were at Erasmus Hall or at New Utrecht. We were still getting the same kind of attitude, you know. And I think it's basically boils back to education. They knew we were smart, and you know,
And the competition. And the
that
competition.
percentage,
Right.
that
Right.
percentage was definitely different than other schools. So,
Mm.
you know, that kind of just distinguished us right there. So that was already like, we have to try to tear you guys down one way or the other in certain respects. And of course, for us, delivering the goods is where we sized up, you know.
And you know what? I gotta add, I have a feeling they also felt that smart meant soft, which they are
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
wrong about.
Right.
So when
Absolutely.
you when you say that, is it that they confronted you guys because of that more so, or
No.
was it just
It
something
was just the
that
attitude.
like
It was
us
just a
down.
lot of
Right.
attitude.
Right.
a
It was an
preconceived
attitude.
notion of what they thought you guys were like?
They had a preconceived
Yeah.
notion. Right.
And
But
of
No
course,
difference
the
than-
raunchy chairs, you know,
Right.
they did certain
Right.
chairs and
Right.
flipping their skirts at us
Right.
and
Yep.
certain, you know, and just flexing. There was a lot of flexing at times, and definitely at Jeff, you know, definitely at Erasmus.
Oh yeah.
You know, there were definitely certain schools, you know, that we came up against.
We didn't
that-
treat you like that at Midwood, though. We were very nice to you guys. Okay, just to let you know.
But you know,
What was
I'm
soft?
pleading the fifth.
I think
I'm pleading the fifth.
During
Midwood had a nice feel. I'm pleading the fifth.
during that time when we were
There's
there,
some-
you know,
there's
in
some-
the 70s, Tech had a very large Black population, unlike how it is now. So, you know, when we showed up, just like you said, and I wanted to say this even earlier, the other schools, we also had the pressure just because we were Brooklyn Tech. And again, people thought that we were going to come and we were not going to deliver. I don't know what they thought we were going to come and do.
Exactly.
But we were good. I mean, we were really good. Miss Ski definitely allowed us to have the soul in it. We just couldn't be, we had to just be classy with the soul. But we brought it. We brought it good. So that's why, like Carol said, even at the end, whether win or loss, the girl, you know, the other girls who were trying to give us that, you know, they were doing a flexing, they had to kind of, we good, guys. I know y'all didn't expect that. I know we got the chemistry on lock and these cheers, like we good. And so we came strong. We were loud. Our
Definitely
voices
loud.
because that was one of the things that Miss Ski, she taught us a lot of techniques.
Yes.
So our voices, we came with strong, powerful voices. You know, always from the diaphragm. Remember, guys?
always from the top.
Yes.
Always from the
Yes.
diaphragm.
I don't know. Y'all are scaring me now. And
What
Be
I was
Nice,
gonna
you look
say.
like you were the tough one, though.
Listen,
What I was
Be Nice was probably the
I'm
tough
still
one.
loud to this day.
To this day, yeah. When I do workshops, I tell them, I said, "Do y'all need me to use my cheerleader voice? What are we doing?"
Right.
And the guys are like, "Whoa!" But we practice outside at the parade ground, so we were used to, you know, we worked out. We had a serious regimen, and so when we came, like, you know, the lady said, she demanded excellence, and so our cheers were there was precision, So
Right.
anyone else, whether they were flexing on us and they were mad because it was all these women of different races and predominantly Black also that were coming there. They were coming from an elite school, but we were coming with soul and class, and we were bringing it, and there was nothing you could say.
And
I
guess
was-
what?
I
The
was
guys,
loving-
were,
And
And the
the
guys,
guys
loved us.
were waiting for us to
They were
deliver
waiting for us
the
after.
goods. You know, the
me-
guys waited for us to deliver the goods too, and at times we're standing on the side,
Sure
you know,
were.
doing the chairs with us,
Sure
and so
were.
forth and so on. But I was gonna add also, like, even let's say if we went to Erasmus and Erasmus did a raunchy chair, they would step back now and wait to see what we were gonna come with, and they thought we were gonna come with what they were delivering, but no, we came with the clean, classy delivery, and then they would say something, but then it's like at the end of the day, who really was delivering the goods? We
Right.
were.
Right.
We
Wow.
never transformed at all. Never conformed to the standards that was expected.
But you had
of us.
your
We
own.
always stayed.
We wanted to though.
We had our own
Oh, we
standards.
wanted to
Absolutely.
bad.
Absolutely.
We
It
was
kind of
And we would beg,
Miss
beg
Ski-
Ski
Ski was
sometimes.
like
Come
this
on,
on
let
the
us
couch.
do
it
this.
disheartens me to
You
see
know.
that it went to raunchy because particularly my junior and senior year, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. If Erasmus was coming to our home gym, my stomach was a wreck all day. They were clean. They were larger numbers. They were clean. Their choreography was on point. They didn't have any raunchy cheers. They didn't
Really?
have any. And they would come and just like burn our gym down.
Plus they
So
had
when I was
numbers,
a
and they had
senior,
numbers.
I was like, yeah, and they were coming numbers. And when I was a senior, and because where I grew up, I knew a lot of them.
Right.
So you don't let somebody come and take over your house. You
Right.
just don't do that. So
Yeah.
my senior year, the game kept going into overtime and I actually fainted, but that's a different story. We were on that L shape and I just remember somebody dragging me by my back because I kind of fell down in the squat. But it made us better. It made us better. That one time they came in our junior year, and I mean, they took over our gym. We said that will never happen again.
Wow.
And remember our junior years when Ski was coming in and out because she had been laid off. So we were like, no, we are not going to go to her and tell her that they're going to take our gym over 2 years in a row.
Right.
We will not be doing that. So it made us better. But the raunchy stuff, the only school that I remember being really raunchy was Tilden. And I mean, they even had an F word in one of their chairs. And we were like, what?
Wow.
Ooh.
What you got, D Nice?
Put your purse on your shoulder
Yeah.
because we leaving here quick. But they did. I'll never forget it. I was stunned.
Wow.
I was stunned. But but we didn't have a lot of raunch, going forward. It disheartens me to hear it because good cheerleaders don't have to resort to that.
Right.
Sometimes the
Well, I
moves
think
can
some
get a
of them
little out
may-
of hand.
But I think some of them may not have had coaching, proper
know,
coaching.
yeah.
Could be.
It was just
Could
the
be.
teams formed
Right.
amongst the students.
Could
You know
be.
what I mean?
Yeah. What'd you say, D Nice?
I was going to say it was basically, and Sonia had covered some of it, because what I was going to say is whether we lost on the court or not, the cheering squad always won. And maybe that was just the years that I was there, but
Hey.
Brooklyn Tech cheering squad out-cheered them all. And it was never like everyone is saying, we never got raunchy. That wasn't the case, but we did have a little attitude. So like when we said we come from Tech,
Yeah.
I mean,
We
come on,
could-
like,
Yeah.
come from
Yeah.
Tech, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like when we said it, you knew. Like
Oh,
there was no
absolutely.
mistaking. We were there,
Absolutely.
and
And what were y'all doing? Saying those cheers, holding up the periodic table?
no,
We were
Yeah.
breaking down
That's
the
what you
bleachers
were
at that
hoping we
point.
would do. That's what you were hoping we would
That's
do.
what we were doing.
No.
No,
Right.
but that says something. I
It
mean,
does.
honestly,
It
that does send a message,
It does.
that we know what this is. Sorry, but
It does.
Um,
And-
Not sorry.
so I'm not mad at you for doing that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think, Eric, the other thing is that as the cheering squad continued to grow, I think one of our powers was that we had all of these different sections, right? We had our boosters. I mean, when you think about Tech cheering squad as a whole, it's like music.
Right.
It's like the
Right.
different layers of music, because you had the
Good point.
boosters and a lot of boosters holding down that bass line.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could come into the tech gym and mess with the bass line.
Mm-mm.
We had so many boosters that knew, who were strong and energetic. There was no coming into the tech gym and
Power
trying
up,
to
right?
come up against our boosters. There's just no such thing. I mean, they were the baseline, and you had twirlers. Most of the other schools didn't
Right.
even have
Didn't
twirlers.
have any.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's
Right.
be clear.
Right.
We had an entire twirling squad and pepsters. I mean, we had so many layers. I mean, and the cheerleaders. So you had people who were gymnastic. Then you had the baseline boosters. Then you had the technical twirlers who were like throwing stuff in the air. Then you had pepsters picking people up. I mean, we were so multifaceted and multi-layered. When you came into the tech gym, there was definitely no sounding us out.
Right. And then we also had the competition teams.
Yeah, I mean, at the
Mhm.
competition team and at a football
Mhm.
game, if we were on the field, we had such diversity of what was going on. Most of the other schools that we went up against
They
had
didn't have
a
that.
single cheering squad.
Yeah,
They
one-
did not have the multiplicity that we had.
That's
And
right.
so, as the cheering squad evolved, we got to the point where, yes, as Denai said, we always won, because there was something very special about the way that we were built. It was unlike most other schools. And certainly if you came to tech, there was no shutting down the tech boosters in our gym. That
That's
was
right.
Well, it's funny because you're saying, we won, right? That's what, Denise is saying, that we did win. And it's actually not a competition. So so that viewers could understand, how do you measure that? From the perspective of the cheerleader, how do you measure if you say you won or you did well? Like, what is the measurement and the gauge by which you can sit back and say that we were that successful and that we were winning, whether the team won at that sporting event or not? What was it like to be a cheerleader? What did you have to do to be a winner in that field?
So the cheering squad, again, the precision, the uniforms, like we were clean cut. Like, I just remember our hair was looking good. We really took pride in the way we looked because we were representing the school. So our sound, Leslie talked about that bass line. We were so large that you could we echoed, we literally had an echo in our delivery. So we were out cheering from a sound decibel level for sure. Like you heard us, you could hear us miles away.
Yes.
But also when you look at the routines, I mean, these routines were intricate, they were creative. There was a lot of practice that went into these cheering routines. So, and you had the gymnastics. So it wasn't just cheering, it was really some high level, accomplishments that went along with it. So I would tell you that there was competition because, as everyone mentioned, there was a competition squad, and the competition squad was winning competitions as well.
That's right.
And what's really interesting is, as much as the cheerleaders cheered for everybody else, when it came time for competition, all of those squads, be it the football players, the basketball players,
They
everyone,
traveled with us.
they traveled and cheered for the cheerleaders when they
That's right.
So
And that's how we were winning.
reciprocal agreement.
Yeah.
Plus, we knew
I
we were
would-
winning when alongside you were the people, the audience in the bleachers stomping along with you,
Yes.
clapping
Right.
along.
Yes.
It's the school
They were
spirit.
awaiting our halftime performances. It's not like anybody was running off to go get refreshments at that time. They were waiting to see what we were coming with.
Our
And,
pyramids were
I would
spectacular.
consider-
We had a
Yeah.
move called the plop. And I gotta
Right.
tell you, I really think we're gonna end up taking disability in our old age behind that move. But we did a plop that when we did that plop, people would be like, oh,
Yes.
Right.
the
High
plop.
up in the air, exactly.
I mean, everybody has splits and cartwheels, but I don't know that anybody had a plop like we did. Nobody did that plop.
What is a plop? What is that?
I wish my old body could.
So yeah, I
I
can't.
don't want to see it.
I can't do it.
Just tell
But
me.
it was where you actually, like, from standing, went down into, like a squat. And then, Eric, if you can imagine, you like pump down into a squat and then kick your legs
Sweep
out
your
and
leg.
fall on your legs and behind.
Oh, okay.
And
That's quite all right.
yeah, when you see,
Yeah, I sent him that picture. You didn't post it yet.
good. I mean, when you see
Eric.
10,
Okay, I got it.
20, 35 women do that energetically, athletically, together, precisely.
Right.
I mean, the crowd would go
Yep.
bananas.
Exactly.
They would go
So
bananas.
I think Denise is right. As Carol said, there was that level of, you asked a little earlier about what was it like to cheer for these, these other athletics teams, but it was very, very collaborative. I mean, we were out there cheering on their unique skill, whether it was football or basketball. We were out there making sure that they were getting the energy they needed to do their best. But when we were showing up at, USA Skate,
That's
which
right.
was a brand new competition that was all over the city for competition cheerleading, these same people were in those skating rinks. I mean, when we performed, it was just as loud for us as we had been for them. And
Please,
so,
we went to
yeah, and I think,
Boston.
when you think about winning, for me, winning was, as Denise said, we were so prepared. You can, I mean, even now, you can watch synchronized swimming or watch any, sport where synchronization is the key component. And you can watch and tell what teams are extraordinary and which teams probably needed to practice more. And it was the same for us. We could go to high schools and be like, yeah, they needed a few more weeks practice for that.
They needed
And say it very tactfully, right?
Yeah, and we knew when we were leaving that we had killed it, right? In comparison to the cheering squad at the other school that we were, up against in that particular forum. And so, yeah, you can tell when you like crushed whoever you were cheering against, they were not ready for what we were bringing to the table.
Right.
Whether the
Also,
team that was playing won or not, we could also tell that our team was ready, or in some cases where we were not ready, we went back and one, we heard it from Ski, and two, we heard it from ourselves, because that desire, that thing that she poured into us to be excellent, it's not a fleeting thing. It's a thing that becomes part of who you are and how you operate. And we would get on the train and be like, yo, that was not our best. And we're going to have to do this. This isn't acceptable. We were as hard on ourselves sometimes as Ski was on us.
Okay. Yeah. Nobody, no one, I guess that was the end of that conversation, huh? No, but it's a very interesting dynamic, because a lot of people don't know what you guys go through, and they don't really care to involve themselves enough to even ask to understand. And to have this opportunity to express it so that people do understand that you're not just out there shaking pom-poms and screaming and losing your voice every Tuesday and Friday evening, and people just don't have
for
it.
amateurs.
Huh?
Losing your voices for amateurs.
Yeah, but you understand my
Lose
point.
their voice.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in that vein, you will find that people don't care. They're not concerned, but there is, that person behind that curtain who's orchestrating this to get you guys to be synchronized, to be a team, to work together, to show that support and that level that has people leaving saying, damn, they made that other, squad look, they put them to shame. So who is your competition though, if that's the case? What schools? I mean, go ahead, whoever it might be.
I would say in my era, the toughest competition was Erasmus Hall, and I would say Tottenville, because they were doing precision when a lot of people were not doing it. and it was unfamiliar to us, and they were very good at it.
Yeah.
See, it's one thing to say you're doing precision and you still look like the Little Rascals, but they were good at it.
Yeah. Before anybody else answers, I'll tell you a quick story about Tottenville. When I was playing at Midwood, we went there to play, and it was like a 3 o'clock game. It's kind of early, right? So, so we get there, walk into the gym, and it's the most crowdedest high school game I've ever played in, and I played in some big arenas. There was not a seat available. It was jam packed. We go out there, we get on a layup line. All of a sudden, dong, the class bell rings. Everybody leaves. We played in front of no one. The craziest thing, and it was synchronized almost when I come to think of it, because when that bell went off, they just orderly left the gym through certain areas. Like if you were sitting in this section, you orderly left this way. These guys, they orderly left, and we played in front of absolutely no one.
Wow.
It was the craziest thing I ever saw in my life. They lost by 60. But go ahead, I'm sorry. It's very weird. But yeah, tell me, like the competition, who was it? Other than Erasmus, who else we got?
Midwood,
Midwood?
Jefferson.
Jefferson, I was gonna say Jeff. I
Yeah,
know.
Jefferson.
Jeff was always a thorn in our side. Just
Yeah.
across the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what about South Shore and,
They
the
were-
We
boys'
didn't really
high?
worry about South
They were
Shore.
big.
It was
Yeah.
Jeff was mainly.
Yeah, they were large and their colors were pretty, but
But it was right.
yeah, no execution. No
No.
execution.
Canarsie.
Yeah.
Canarsie, I would say probably.
Canarsie was, I think we were better, but they were good.
They were decent. Jeff
Mhm.
just always stood out to me because that was always, everyone always talked about Jeff and whatever we had to do, whether it was the athletes or the squads. We were like, oh, Jeff.
Okay, what about
I
what
would
about
say
the,
Lincoln.
Oh, yes.
you said Lincoln?
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
say
Yeah,
About
and
Lincoln.
they have a
for Jeff.
they have a good tradition at Lincoln.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, I
when
think
I
in
saw
terms-
their current girls, I wasn't surprised. They have a good
I mean, I
tradition.
think in terms of the actual cheering and formations, they also had a big squad, right? They had a big school, they had a big field of their own. That was actually, I mean, again, when we think about adversity, right? Tech didn't have a field.
No.
So, we're leaving school, we're hopping on the train, we're going to the parade grounds.
I was gonna ask that, so you guys left and went to parade grounds to
Every day.
To practice.
Every
Every day.
day.
Practice every day.
Practice.
3 hours.
Once it got
every day
cold,
for 3 hours.
Thank you. 3 hours.
Once it was indoor season and we were, preparing for competition or for basketball season, we would be in the gym, which was also an enormous gym inside.
Or the hallways.
Wow.
The hallways, but for most of the
Yeah.
fall, we're leaving school, we're going on the train to the parade grounds, we're practicing until dark.
Yep.
And then we are hopping on trains and all going to different places. And I mean, Eric, when I say different places, I mean, it's like, I'm going to Crown Heights, someone's going into Flatbush, other people are going to the Bronx,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? They had an hour and a
Yeah,
half.
because they live in the Bronx and they go to Brooklyn Tech, yeah.
Right. And
Wow.
so, there's a lot of adversity there. And so I think, again, when you think about building mental toughness, when you think about building endurance, right? You're doing that. And then you're getting on the train going to Bronx and you're doing your homework on the train, right?
Exactly.
Still
Yep.
other expectations that needed to happen. Right. And so, I think that built a certain level of endurance in us. And I think Lincoln to me was the only other school that had the breadth, had the size, had formations, they had a good band, it was like they were, I think, similar in a lot of ways. I think, Jeff was competition because the girls were also, kind of sassy and cute and, had a lot of attention as we all did. But, cheering wise, formation wise, the techniques of cheering, I don't know that they were on our level. But Lincoln definitely, I think, gave us a run for a lot of what we were known for.
Was
They-
Lafayette any good when you guys were cheering?
Who, Faye?
Lafayette High School.
Not really.
Lafayette, listen,
Way to go,
Lafayette
Carol.
had a great band, and it's so funny. They actually have a good band till today.
Yeah, they always had a good band. Yeah.
Always
But that's the band. That wasn't the cheering.
But their cheering squad.
No, they
Just
were in
asking.
competition.
Just asking. 'Cause I remember them being big, being loud, being loud. There's you have to be more than big and loud though. You have in order to move
Saying
people,
something.
to get people into the game. You have to bring something else there. So, yeah.
But think about what we were bringing though. 3 hours of 3 hours of training every day, delivering the goods, still trying to keep the grades to
Great.
maintain your status at school.
Right,
You
and
know,
to be
in
on
a
the squad.
specialized school.
Right.
Like we had a lot
Mhm.
to put out there. You know, a lot.
But nothing that you all couldn't handle though, right?
Well, we
Apparently
handled
not.
it. We were all graduates. We were all graduates, and we
There you
all
go.
delivered the goods.
Yeah. I find that, the things that you guys are bringing to the table is kind of refreshing for me because, like I said, you don't understand from the aspects of how cheerleaders' psyche is and how they approach what they do. Because, as an athlete, I'm never seeing you guys doing anything because my focus is somewhere else. But I'm feeling you guys. And for me, I can't lose my focus, but I need you guys to lift me and to light a fire under me. So I'm there's two races being ran in my head as the athlete that you guys are cheering for. Are you guys very much aware of that, and what is your take on what you're trying to accomplish in being good at your cheering process and your capabilities? Or do you know that your existence is to push us to another level?
I heard that, and more so in latter years, from, believe it or not, some of the football team when I went back to an old game. And the crazy part was, and this was just a few years ago, the guys actually were able to do the cheers. They said, I remember those cheers you used to do, and we used to like that. And they broke out doing the cheers, their favorite cheers that they would hear when they were playing the game that they liked. And I was laughing. I was like, oh my God, like y'all really were listening. And they were saying, yeah, like we, basically what you were saying, Eric, that they needed that boost, and they were able to it was funny to see these big old guys doing the they can't beat tech, and I'm like, you guys actually know the words, like you really know the words. And but they were saying how important it was for them to have us there, and they actually kind of, they did that back in school too. Like they let us know, they were always appreciative. That was one thing I can say. The basketball team as well as the football team, they were appreciative of our presence, and they let us know that. Like they really let us know that. But then again, like I said, 30, 40 years later to be at a game and have a bunch of old players actually reciting the cheer and trying to do it the best of their little ability and letting us, I said, wow, y'all really didn't need that. And you really hung on to those words because you're reciting them all these years later. So
it's interesting
funny,
because, there's so much written on it now. I don't think that there was any, peer-reviewed articles back at the time, but it talks about, when men or the masculine being have a feminine counterpart. And I can just remember like the games that they would lose, for example, where they really, really treasured having this female, feminine, sister girl to really kind of almost like, I don't want to say they were crying into us, but, they were like kind of lamenting of, oh man, that really didn't go. And so where the masculinity sometimes doesn't allow you to feel vulnerable or, just kind of be disappointed in yourself because you kind of be, have that male strong person. I think that the relationship that we had with many of them, it really allowed them to kind of just be that soft, like, man, I'm so mad at myself. I would hear that a lot. Like I said, I dated a guy who played basketball. So it's like, I really, heard some of that conversation and, the relationship that he had with many of you guys, was certainly admirable. So
Here I go. The basketball team in the latter half of the 70s was more appreciative of the squads than the football team. the football team was treated as the elite athletes of the school, and the basketball team was not. And most of us are all still friends today, because not only did they felt the school not supporting them.
Mm.
And you remember, we were in such a challenging time, but they felt it, but we were always there, and we were feeling, we're fighting for acceptance, and here's this group of athletes that accept us on our terms. So there were bonds created there that we just, quite frankly, didn't have with the football team. Yes, some people have friends on the football team, and some, but I'm just going to be honest. I carry my politics everywhere I go, and I've been that way since I was 9, haven't I, Eric? But
Yes, you have.
anyway, but the bonds with the basketball team are real, and I saw them as I got older, and as I did different things. I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask you online, are you going to do anything with Municipal Hospitals basketball, Eric?
What do you mean?
There was a league, and there's a lot of guys that I'm seeing posting on your page that I know them because of the Municipal Hospital Basketball League. And a lot of them I saw play high school ball. But I never saw Jocko until I saw Municipal Hospitals basketball, because I was a scorekeeper for Lincoln
Right.
Hospital. But there's a lot of Vinnie Johnson, all these guys that come through. Even Hollis Copeland had, well, he played for North Central Bronx, and I don't know how, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But you see, these bonds last because people meet each other on their own terms. What has happened, you talked about peer-reviewed articles in male-female relationships. Society has sexualized cheerleaders, and we've had to fight to be recognized as athletes.
Exactly.
And not only athletes, but leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we were cheerleaders. They've created this myth, and then they have, these sexualized images they keep promoting about cheerleaders, but it's so much more.
Right.
It is so much more. It's the trying to keep your grades up, whatever school you attend.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to keep your grades together. It's the practices. You said your practice in the gym. They wouldn't let us in the gym for practice. They let us on the roof, but they wouldn't let us practice in the gym. But the things that we had to go through to get stuff done, mm-hmm. and then go out there and execute, mm-hmm. and let the players on the field know, we've got your back. We move as one. That you can't sexualize that. That's humanity. That's humanity. That's athleticism. That's commitment. That's care. That's young people just trying to be there for one another. And that, to me, was the valuable lesson that I took away about how to come together, how to organize people, how to get toward a common goal. What do you do when the cheerleaders do well and the basketball team stinks? Okay, I was blunt. But what do you do? And what do you do when the basketball team rocks it out and we didn't look that good that day? Mm-hmm. So how do we support each other? And it's not always, it's not a sexualized issue. It's athletes. It's nobody worries about this with the U.S. Olympic softball, women's softball team and the U.S. males baseball team. Nobody has these problems. But with cheerleading and these movies, this Bring It On series, doesn't help. Doesn't help. Because it'll deal with the it'll touch on the athleticism, but it makes all this other stuff. Mean Girls and isolated. That's not what
that's not built. Real.
It's not what we've built.
Yeah, that's similar. That's similar to people saying, hey, this is the Jersey Shore. No, we raised our daughter in the Jersey Shore. That's not the Jersey Shore.
Right. I think we have to remember it's not real for us.
Right.
Because, within any of those fictionalized accounts, there's going to be that measure of truth that works. Perhaps it does, in fact, exist in California, right? Where those series are actually set. And, it's interesting because I love those movies and I look at them through the lens of the competition. And don't really focus in as much on the, on the highly sort of sexualized part of the story. But, you know, in Copa, California, that may be very much the whole mean girl culture. You know, and it just wasn't
Thankfully, it wasn't ours.
we're experiencing, which I think it, you know, has always been a great thing. I mean, I think someone earlier said that, you know, the cheering squad, I think it was Carol said it was like sort of the first sorority, right? And, you know, for those of us who are in sororities, that solidarity, that, you know, no one gets left behind. That is everybody on the train. You know, that idea of come hell or high water, we ride this out together, that we stay up all night and it doesn't get done until everybody gets it done. If I don't have it done, it means we ain't got it done, right? I mean, all of those concepts of solidarity are, you know, carry over into sorority life. And so, you know, it's interesting how many, I mean, we just did a special issue. Denise and I have worked closely. She recently actually nominated me, and I've recently joined the Brooklyn Tech Alumni Foundation board. And so now we're working closer together than ever. And this year is the celebration of 50 years of women at Tech. And so we worked on this issue, and I mean, the ads of women who are in sororities, who left Tech and are in sororities was massive. I mean, and not surprising that so many of them, like a PTH, a Pamela Taylor Hurst, you know, like myself, Denise, Sonia, I mean, so many women left Tech and found that sense of solidarity in the next stage of their lives in their sororities. But brought to the process a lot about what it means to really have each other's back, to want excellence, right? To need to be precise and together and bonded. And, you know, I don't know that as we were all 17 and 18 and 19 pledging the sorority, I don't know that we all necessarily saw that. But I can tell you that there are nights in my adult life where I've got projects due for work, and I am tired and I am overwhelmed, and I have to often dig deep into that well of what I already know I have done. Well, Leslie, you've been up, you've practiced for 3 hours, got on a train, went home, still did your homework and still aced the test. You can knock this project out tonight. Well, Leslie, you was online all night, up all night, learning X, Y, and Z, still went to class. You can knock this. I find myself sometimes needing to draw on that history that absolutely started with the excellence that was demanded of me as a member of this cheering squad. And so, you know, it's been an honor to join the Alumni Foundation board, not only to reconnect with, you know, with friends and sisters, but even more so to connect with Ski and really have that reconnection with where a lot, you know, on top of my parents and my upbringing and all the things that they could pour into me, Ski was an integral part. And I think I can speak for all of us. Ski was an integral addition to our families that prepared us for our futures and spoke into our lives, regardless of color, regardless of background, economics. There was none of that, and really prepared us and had us believe without a shadow of a doubt that we were ready for the next level. We were ready for whatever was going to come. If we could master what she was putting in front of us, we could master anything. And so, you know, that I think has really stayed with me and has made my joining the board and reconnecting with her and working so closely with her again like an absolute joy.
It's interesting you said that, because I draw strength from when I wanted to try out, because I came into high school wanting to be, you know, I watched TV, so I wanted to be on a cheering squad. I said no. And then I had a friend that in middle school was a mascot for a school, and I used to see the girls come and pick her up. The high school would come and get her, Leslie Sadia. They would come and get her in a uniform, and I was like, okay, when I get to high school, I've got to be a part of that. And so, but the one thing that I draw strength from was trying out by myself. I didn't know anybody in my first, not really. And that was something I wanted to do. And I had the courage to go and to do it. And then it was scary. I did it by myself. And then when I saw my name on the board, so like Leslie, when I'm now with my, whenever I have any doubts about anything, I'm like, girl, you remember when you wanted to join the squad and you went by yourself and you took that chance, and because of that chance, you had that experience. And I always, that is one of those life lessons that I always draw back strength from. Anytime it's something new that I'm trying to do and I may be a little apprehensive, I'll say, remember, Tech, you went by yourself and you did it, and because you did it, all these things rolled out. So yeah, that definitely had a lot. Like you said, it was really important. Just not only just a life lesson there, but it just played out, and I gained so much strength from it as an adult.
So
Anyone
I
else?
have a funny story of resiliency and how the cheering squad gave us so much foundation, because I remember when I got my uniform, like, we ordered uniforms, we looked at them in the book. Like, why did I not think it was going to be a uniform? What we actually got, it was a cutout materials. And I remember going, Carol? And she's like, yeah, you got to sew it. So if I don't know, but like we actually got our uniforms in pre-cut strips that we still had to sew to get it together. So I'm just saying, when you think about pledging and being prepared for the unexpected, I just remember teasing, somebody and like, well, look, your uniform came together. We sewed our we had to sew our uniforms.
Right.
And it seems to me that, it's widespread from everybody that I've talked to during this process of, I guess for me, one of the most important words that describes everyone's experience, no matter whether you're an athlete, a cheerleader, a fan, whatever, is value. And, you go into these things as an adolescent, as a high school student, and you're grabbing value to mold yourself. But as you're doing that, you're doing it with others. So you're building skill sets. And it's all part of our maturation and our growth as individuals to be part of teams, to be able to work with others, to get along with others. And this is very evident to me, and it supports other interviews that people said exactly the same things that you guys are saying. And I'm letting you know this because as the journey continues, that commonality that I'm seeing, I'm just sharing it back with you guys to say, the Erasmus cheerleader said the same thing. The Long Island University cheerleader said the same thing. My wife, who's a cheerleader, if I were to call her in here, she'd be like saying the same thing. Brooklyn, not Brooklyn Tech, but Tilden.
With
So
the bad words.
I know. But it's refreshing to know that it wasn't just a babysitting exercise for you guys to have something to do in the evening. You actually participated and you got involved and you add value to it, add value to your classmates. So you were supportive. And I take my hats off to you guys because people don't understand what you guys go through. And they kind of like, to some degree, in our society, they don't even respect it. They don't care. They just want to see the guys play. They don't give a damn what, cheerleaders do or not. As an athlete, I'm always going to be appreciative of you guys because I draw on you guys to, keep me and to be there. And when I'm crying, when the game's over and I miss that shot, I know I can come over and give Faye a hug and she'll still my friend unconditionally. And that's what it's for. But it works in the other direction as well. If one of you guys fall and, turn your ankle doing a routine, I guarantee you some of the athletes are going to come turn around like, you okay, blah, blah, blah. Because as Faye and I know, because we've known each other for a long time, there's long-lasting relationships. And it's just, you guys have to be commended.
So one of the things that I want to make sure that we say, just for saying it, is that cheering is that is an athletic sport. So there's no separation of athletes versus cheerleaders. Cheerleaders are athletes. If you And by the way, that's as defined by the New York Public School,
Yeah,
because
and I agree. I
most of
agree.
us, once you cheered, you were able to use that as a credit towards
That's from
gym.
gym, yeah.
So, and it is recognized. It is a recognized sport in terms of being athletic. And of course, a lot of that has to do for funding and other things. But when you're a cheerleader, and if you look at some of the moves that these young ladies are doing, they're absolutely athletes. You know, I think of that aerial cartwheel that Kelly perfected. I mean, absolutely athletic. And if you think about the stamina, you think about when you're playing a game and you're playing it at a high intensity. If you realize that the cheering squad is cheering at high intensity for that same amount of time. As a matter of fact, when you guys take a break for halftime, we go out for the show, right? So we don't have that break. Like, so we are cheering at that level. I was in some of my best physical conditioning back in my cheering days. You know, my legs were tight. So, we're athletes. All of that to say, cheer is an athletic sport.
Yeah.
Don't remind me of what my body was like back then.
However, when I went to John Jay College, and in my senior or junior year, we had the leading defense in the country. It was always between, of all three divisions, it was between us and St. Peter's. We were giving up maybe like 40 points a game. And we were at York College, and the score was something like 45-40. Anyway, we went to overtime 5 times. When they called the 5th overtime, I pulled the girls off the floor. I said, you got to bring it home. Come on now. 5 overtimes, you got to bring it home. But I think, what's his name? Walter. His first name was Walter. He played for York at the time. He was a power forward. I can't think of his name, but he actually participated in the draft that year. That was 79, because I graduated in 80, 79. Can't think of his last name, but he was really, really good. But damn, if they wouldn't, oh God, I was like, please, somebody shoot something. Yeah. But the 5th overtime, I was like, we're done. We're done. We didn't leave, but we were done.
There you go.
Eric, do you recall, and I'm just thinking back to, you know, my time at Tech, there was a league, a basketball league that many of the Tech players played on with other kids. What was it?
Not Gauchos.
The Gauchos. That's right.
I asked him about that. As soon as
remember St. George? He played on. Yeah. So there was the Gauchos. So what I recall is that some of our players were friends with many of the other schools, and they kind of knew them from playing on the Gauchos and other leagues. And so there was that dynamic of they were kind of known in their circles.
Yeah, I mean, there's a process by which after high school is over, I guess there's AAU, which is the summer months, and there was tournaments, and there were local organizations that had teams for which a lot of guys from Tech did participate in. Especially from you guys' era, it's the Mike Watleys and that age group.
Yeah.
And Mike is like a couple years younger than me, and he's like, I was like his hero. Yeah. But nevertheless, there's like the Gauchos, Brooklyn USA, Riverside Church, Brownsville Jets. These were known organizations. But in the summer, these guys come together and they play with different, organizations. So you might be playing with a guy from Jefferson or South Shore. So, and that's, the tool that's used for us as athletes to gauge where we are as talent-wise. Am I the same player I was yesterday? Well, how can I be? I play for the Gauchos now. So it's a reckoning that you have reached a pinnacle, whereas you're playing for the higher level team, for which that team, like Riverside Church and Gauchos, they go to Europe, and we go to California and play, and we're playing in Australia. So they take the best of the best, but the best of the best, knowing New York, there's 8 best of the best. So 8 teams, so that's 80 guys. And during that era, there was so many great players in New York that there were like 5 or 6 organizations going all over the world playing. And, but so we had intermingling, playing in those environments, but then you go back to your school and you're the best player on that school team. But when you go and play for the Gauchos, you're the third best player because you're playing with
Right.
Chris Mullin.
Right.
So it's kind of, but it's a nice environment, and it's the maturation of the process as an athlete is to progress and to go forward.
And I can
Um,
remember saving the New York Daily News, like the McDonald's listing when,
Yes,
like, oh my
yes.
God, he made the team. Yeah, the
Mhm.
McDonald's list.
Well, are
The
you guys, and just out of
thing is-
curiosity, are you guys on the Ballside Middle webpage?
No.
Are you guys aware of the documentary?
Yes. Yes.
All right, the documentary has a Facebook page that I curate, and it's called Ballside Middle. Exactly what this shirt says.
Okay.
And if you go in there, or if you're Charlene, Charlene, you're in the page, right? So
Yeah. I
We
mentioned
just-
it on the first.
Charlene will send you invites, and you'll get in
Yeah.
there, and you'll see those articles because I have access to every newspaper in America. So I have 1,000 articles, and of the era that you guys were at Brooklyn Tech, and you'll see articles. I post them all the time. So it give you an opportunity to reminisce on those days when the team was good, and some of the years when the team wasn't so good.
I just remember the year Lorenzo Charles made that there was no consoling us. I literally ran out my house onto the street where my girlfriend who went to Brooklyn Tech had run out of her house. So we met in the middle of the street and we're jumping up and down. We're like, did you see Lorenzo? Did you see Lorenzo? So
Yeah, I
Cheerleaders.
mean, it's
Yeah.
and that's what those things do to you. It brings out a level of pride,
Mhm.
and that's what those are some of the minor things that we get out of sports that people don't talk about, but they're things that are that good feeling. It's kind of like it's the blue cheese for the wings. You can't eat the wings
Yes.
without the blue cheese. So it complements the game. All these little battles, these little wins, little successes, all make it what it's all about. Those tears when you lose, and back in the day, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, and everything in between. And that's what sports does to us, for us, and by us. So I mean, it's a very great dynamic for me. I've lived my life through it. My marriage is based on basketball, so I'm a little bit weird with that. But with that being said, I mean, unless somebody has something else to say, I'm gonna actually end the video. I want to say to you all, thank you very much for participating in this. This was a very, very enlightening, and probably I'm not an educator, but I am because I'm the guy behind the curtain. So. So this supported that prior meeting. It was unbelievable, and this was, right in line with it. And plus I had a chance to see my bud Faye Moore, which I haven't seen in so long. I thought I was gonna start crying when I saw you, to be quite honest with you. But I want to thank you all.
Lord knows
for
you've made me cry
participating.
enough. You used to torture me, just torture me.
Yeah,
No.
that's not true. That's not true. But I want to thank you guys again, and please stay online because I'm gonna end the video. But thank you again, guys.